Hey everyone, it's Jordan. So for this module, we're looking at how students are going to be able to collaborate together to work through my lesson from Module 3. So just a quick recap of the lesson. I did a lesson here on how to differentiate between climate and weather. So the first couple of pieces here, the students would be responsible for going through this information. So this would kind of be some of the information that they would need to use when they're going to collaborate later. So I provided them with just a couple of short texts here to read through and then just define a couple words that they're going to need to know to get through the lesson together. So there's 3 on this page, and then I gave them another short piece of text to read and then some more words to define on the next page. Again, all these words just relating to climate and weather. Giving them some digital texts and some videos to look through here. Also a graphic organizer there at the bottom to help them differentiate between climate and weather. What can they expect from each of those pieces? Giving them then causes of climate that they would need to read through, and also I provided them a video to watch that presents that same information. Same deal here with weather then, giving them some factors that are included when they're talking about the weather on a daily basis, and also a video to watch that goes over those same factors. And then a chance here on the left-hand side for them to list their own examples of what they can expect when they're talking about the climate versus the weather. The next piece here then is where I would have the students collaborate together. So first of all, before we would get into this collaboration, one of our readings from this week was big on setting expectations. That's the big thing that I would have to do to prepare my students to get ready for this piece, is just to set expectations. The way I'm going to set this up is going to be the jigsaw method from one of our readings this week. So the expectation would be for the students, just reminding them that each of them are going to be an expert on 2 of these 8 climate regions. So it's their job to make sure that they are completing the work that they're going to then have to share with their group. So they'll be experts in 2 of them, and also then just setting the expectation that they need to be prepared and be ready to share when it's time to collaborate. They have a job to do, and they need to make sure they do it. Part of that then also goes back to the beginning of the lesson that I just went through, making sure they've read through those short texts and videos that I provided, so they are prepared and able to talk about these different climate types around the world using some of the vocab and some of the different things they've looked at earlier in the lesson. From there then, like I mentioned, the students will be split into groups using jigsaw method here. So there's 8 climate regions that I focused on, so I would have 4 different groups, and then all the 1s would meet together, 2s, 3s, and 4s. So the 1s would be responsible for the first 2 climate regions that I have listed there in the bottom right, and then 2s would take 3 and 4, 3s would take 5 and 6, and 4s would take 7 and 8. So the first thing that I would have the students do before they even got together was go through and complete their 2 links on their own. So again, each group is answering the same 4 questions. How high and low does the temperature get? What seasons does this particular climate region have? What kind of plants live there, and what kind of animals live there? So they would go through on their own and complete their 2 pieces of information using the links that I provided. Then they would get together with their groups of the same number, and they would go through their answers together. So for example, again, group 1 would have the tropical wet and dry climate. They would then meet, go through the answers, and hopefully their answers match. And if they don't, one of their responsibilities is going to be to go through the pieces of information again together now as a group and making sure that their answers are all matching. So after that session of breakout groups are done, we will come back together, and then each of the students in a particular breakup group would then be paired with another number. So then now my new groups here would all have a 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the goal here of this collaborative session would be each of those groups would go through and share their information now with their new partners. And again, these new partners would not have seen this information before. So again, group 1 with their tropical wet and dry would go through and share with 2, 3, and 4 about what they learned. And then 2 would do the same, 3 would do the same, and then finally 4 would do the same. The goals and expectations here for the other group members then is they are taking notes and writing down the information that's being provided to them from their new group members. So then when it's all said and done, all of the students from all of the groups should have all of the 8 climate regions around the world, notes taken and information learned about each of those regions, excuse me. So benefits here, of course, would be the students don't have to necessarily learn all 8 of the climate regions on their own. They get a chance to just become experts in 2 of them, and then they get a chance as well to become the teacher and share the information they've learned. And as I go throughout my classes every year, I always encourage the students to learn from each other just as much as they would learn from me, and oftentimes students will rise to the challenge, and they enjoy being able to be the expert on different pieces of information to be able to share with their peers. Of course, some of the challenges would be here. Number one, with the digital classroom, you always have to be a little leery of internet access and just the times that students are available to meet for collaborative sessions. I think we all learned through the pandemic that not all students are always available to meet during regular school hours. So this lesson would kind of have to be strategic, and a lot of things would have to be set up ahead of time to make sure that all students are available to meet, because this would most likely run as a synchronous lesson, all happening at the same time. Other challenges, of course, would be students that aren't prepared and don't hold up their end of the expectation. So if one of the group members doesn't do their work, then the other group members kind of has to pick up the slack there. So that's always challenges that we're looking at here with collaboration. That's within the regular face-to-face classroom and the digital classroom as well. The other thing that I've looked at here in this module is preventing information anxiety. And I think I've done a good job with that because, again, I've taken this information and broken it down, especially in this last collaborative piece. Again, the students are only responsible for 2 of the 8 climate regions, so they're not necessarily learning all 8 on their own. Also then, in the previous part of the lesson, the information they had to take in on their own beforehand, again, I've tried to provide different modes and ways that students can learn this information through reading, through videos, through graphics, and tried to break it down into small step-by-step pieces as they go through climate and weather and differentiating between the 2. Finally then, a couple of other ways that I could incorporate collaboration here. One of the big ways that I like doing when I do this lesson every year with my students is getting our school librarian involved. So what I usually ask her to do is pull some other digital resources that focus on specific areas around the world that have these certain climates, and I try to have her pick some well-known areas that students will be familiar with. So again, places not only in the United States but also common places around the world that would experience some of these different climate types, just to provide students with more learning, some extensions here, so they can kind of start to realize what areas around the world we're talking about when we're visiting these different climate regions. Another thing that I will often do with this is also get my parents involved. So each year, without fail, I usually have parents and students as well that have traveled to one of these regions that we study, whether, again, it be part of the United States that might experience some of this similar climate, or different parts around the world. And what I'll often do is have the parents that have been there, and also if their students have been there as well, give them kind of a chance to share and just explain some different things that they experienced, and also how that climate region might be different from the area of the world that we live in, to kind of give the rest of the class just a general idea of, how different people act and function and decisions they make based on the long-term climate they can expect to have in the area they live in. So again, that's what I would do for this module. Collaboration is going to be a huge piece here. I look forward to your discussion and your feedback.